I am Morturi of the Third Moon, and I wish I had never agreed to this cultural exchange program. The human embassy on my homeworld of Kythara was supposed to be a symbol of growing cooperation between our species and theirs. For 3 months, I had worked as a linguistic coordinator, helping bridge the communication gaps between human diplomats and my people's government officials. The work was fascinating. Humans had such peculiar ways of expressing themselves, full of metaphors and emotional undertones, that my species found both puzzling and oddly charming. I had worked closely with Sarah Lee Oakwood during my time at the embassy. She was the military attaché, but more than that, she was a Knight Academy graduate who had been recruited for a special project by her former professor. They wanted someone to demonstrate to new alien allies what the Texas Knights truly stood for: not war, but justice and protection. Sarah Lee had agreed reluctantly, not because she didn't believe in the mission, but because she had other plans. She wanted to be an active knight like her father, but only after he retired so she could carry the family quantum blade and peacemaker into battle herself. "It's temporary," she had told me once while we worked late on cultural documentation, "just a year to help people understand that knights aren't conquerors. We're protectors. Then I'll join the Corps properly when Dad hangs up his spurs." She was brilliant, dedicated, and genuinely committed to showing the galaxy the best of what humanity represented. Her knight training was evident in everything she did, from her tactical awareness to her unwavering moral compass. Then the Dartmans came. I was in the archives when the attack began, deep in the embassy's lower levels, cataloging human cultural documents for our mutual understanding project. The first indication of trouble was the sound. Sharp cracks of energy weapons echoing through the building's ventilation system, followed by human voices raised in alarm, then the distinctive whine of plasma fire and pulse rifles. By the time I reached the main level, the battle was still raging, but barely. Ambassador Rommel lay crumpled behind his desk, his weathered face frozen in a final expression of defiance. Deputy Morrison was slumped against a wall, his sidearm drawn but empty. The embassy's security team, 26 elite human Marines and another 26 specialized diplomatic guards, had put up a fierce fight throughout the building. Bodies littered the corridors, surrounded by scorch marks and expended ammunition casings. But in Sarah Lee's office, I found something different. Sarah Lee Oakwood lay beside her overturned desk, a plasma burn across her chest. But her quantum blade that her father had given her as a gift for finishing academy was fully drawn and still humming with residual energy. Beside her lay a dead Dartman assassin, his crimson armor breached by a perfect quantum disruption strike. She had fought back with every skill her father had taught her, and she had made them pay for her life. Her hand was still on her communication console, where she had managed to send one final transmission before succumbing to her wounds. 3 words that would change everything. Dartman false flag. 1,838 humans in total, all dead within 30 minutes. But Sarah Lee Oakwood had died like a knight, taking one of the enemy with her and ensuring the truth would survive. I knew they were Dartmans from their distinctive insectoid features and the crimson battle suits they wore. My species had encountered them before, a militant race from the outer spiral known for their surgical precision in warfare and their complete lack of regard for diplomatic protocol. I hid in a supply closet, my natural camouflage abilities allowing me to blend with the shadows while I tried to process what had happened. Through the ventilation grate, I could hear them speaking in their clicking, chittering language. My translation implant, designed for human languages, could only pick up fragments, but what I understood chilled my inner core. Extraction confirmed for 27 standard hours. Human reinforcements eliminated at spaceport. Blame will fall on Kytheran extremists as planned. One of the humans killed Zektar before dying. Acceptable losses for the mission. A false flag operation. They intended to make it look like my people had attacked the human embassy, destroying the fragile peace that had taken decades to build. The implications were staggering. It could trigger a war between humans and Catharans that would devastate both civilizations. For the next 18 hours, I remained hidden, watching through security feeds as the Dartmans established defensive positions throughout the embassy. They were professionals, I had to admit. Every entrance was covered, every angle of approach secured. 14 elite assassins now holding a fortress designed to resist external attack, reinforced with the weapons they'd taken from 52 dead human soldiers and security personnel. But something was wrong. I could hear it in their increasingly agitated communications. Orbit station confirms no contact with extraction fleet. Possible human interdiction of our ships. Recommend immediate withdrawal to secondary position. Negative, orders are to maintain position until relief arrives. Their escape route had been compromised. Whatever fleet was supposed to extract them had either been destroyed or diverted. They were trapped on Cathara with nowhere to run, and their mission's success now depended entirely on outside rescue. It was then that the building's proximity alarms began to sound. I accessed the embassy's external sensors from my hiding place, expecting to see Catharan security forces finally responding to the attack. Instead, my inner core nearly stopped functioning from shock. A single figure approached across the embassy's courtyard. Humanoid, but moving with an inhuman grace that left trails of blue energy behind each step. The figure wore armor that seemed to absorb light itself and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained power. A Texas knight. I had heard stories, of course. Everyone in this sector of space had heard stories about the Texas Knights, human warriors who combined advanced quantum technology with an almost mythical dedication to justice. They were legends more than reality to most non-humans. Figures from human folklore who supposedly appeared when their people faced impossible odds. But this one was real, and he was walking toward an embassy full of elite Dartman assassins like he was taking a casual stroll. The Dartmans had noticed him too. Their communications frequency erupted with rapid-fire tactical coordination. Single human approaching main entrance. Unknown armor configuration. Men consistent fire to discourage. Negative. Maintain concealment until target is in kill zone. I watched through the security feeds as the knight reached the embassy's main door. For a moment he simply stood there, and I could swear I felt something radiating from him. Not heat or energy, but something deeper. Something cold and implacable. Then he spoke, and his voice carried through the building's comm system with crystal clarity. My name is Major Desmond Oakwood, Texas Ranger Corps. Y'all killed Sarah Lee Oakwood. She was my daughter. The simple statement hit like a physical blow. This wasn't just a knight responding to a diplomatic crisis. This was a father seeking vengeance for his murdered child. The Dartmans opened fire from 8 different positions simultaneously, their plasma weapons joined by the human military-grade pulse rifles they'd claimed from the dead soldiers. Energy beams and explosive rounds converged on the entrance, turning the air itself into a superheated killing field that would have vaporized any normal human instantly. The knight walked through it like it wasn't there. His armor's energy fields deflected the plasma fire, redirecting the deadly energy in spiraling patterns around his form. The pulse rifle rounds simply bounced off his quantum-hardened plating, but more than that, he moved with a fluid grace that made the Dartman's precisely calculated crossfire look clumsy by comparison. His quantum spurs, the legendary energy projection systems that gave Texas Knights their signature blue trails, flared to life as he accelerated. One moment he was at the entrance, the next he was inside the main lobby, his quantum blade carving through the first Dartman's stolen pulse rifle before the assassin could adjust his aim. The Dartman fell, his crimson armor no protection against a weapon that disrupted matter at the molecular level. 13, the knight said calmly, and I realized he was counting down to the one who had killed his daughter. The remaining Dartmans reacted with professional skill, falling back to secondary positions and coordinating their fire to create overlapping kill zones. These were elite soldiers with centuries of combined combat experience, armed with both their own plasma weapons and the humans' military-grade hardware, and they fought like seasoned veterans. But Oakwood was beyond professional skill now. This was personal. Major Oakwood moved through the embassy like a storm given form, his quantum-enhanced speed allowing him to be everywhere and nowhere at once. The Dartmans' advanced tactics and superior firepower meant nothing when their opponent could literally change direction in mid-air, redirecting momentum through quantum field manipulation. The first floor became a war zone. Dartman plasma fire scarred the walls, while pulse rifle rounds shredded furniture and shattered diplomatic displays. Oakwood weaved through it all, his quantum spurs leaving brilliant blue trails as he closed the distance to each assassin. But the Dartmans were learning his patterns, adapting their tactics. One of them, positioned on the upper level, managed to catch Oakwood with a grazing plasma shot as he pursued another target. The knight's armor absorbed most of the damage, but I could see the energy field flicker momentarily. They were making him work for it. 12. Oakwood said as another Dartman fell to his quantum blade, but his breathing was slightly labored now. I watched in fascination and terror as he systematically fought his way through their defensive positions. Each encounter was a masterclass in close-quarters combat. The knight would appear, analyze the tactical situation in milliseconds, and then execute a solution with mathematical precision. But each victory cost him something, energy reserves depleting with every quantum-enhanced maneuver. The Dartmans tried to exploit this, forcing him into increasingly complex engagements. They used the embassy's architecture against him, creating crossfires in narrow corridors and setting up ambushes in rooms with limited escape routes. 11. 10. The survivors tried to retreat to the upper floors, but Oakwood was already there, his quantum spurs allowing him to traverse vertical surfaces as easily as horizontal ones. A Dartman sniper, perfectly concealed in what should have been an impregnable position, managed to get off 2 shots before Oakwood reached him. The first missed, the second scored a direct hit on the knight's shoulder joint. Oakwood stumbled, his armor sparking from the impact, but his quantum blade still found its mark. The sniper fell, his weapon clattering to the floor. 9. The remaining assassins tried a desperate gambit, converging on the archive level where I was hidden. They knew they couldn't match the knight's mobility or firepower individually, so they attempted to use the building's structure against him, creating choke points where superior numbers and concentrated fire might overwhelm even quantum-enhanced reflexes. Oakwood came through the ceiling instead. His quantum blade carved a perfect circle in the reinforced structure above, and he dropped through like an avenging angel, landing in the center of the Dartman formation. The close-quarters battle that followed was too fast for my enhanced senses to track clearly, just glimpses of blue energy trails, the sound of weapons discharging in rapid succession, and the occasional flash of crimson armor as a Dartman tried to find a firing solution. But these were the survivors, the ones who had lasted this long through skill and luck. They fought with the desperation of cornered predators, using every trick in their arsenal. One managed to get inside Oakwood's guard, landing a vicious strike with an energy blade that left his chest armor cracked and smoking. Oakwood responded by grabbing the assassin's arm and using his quantum spurs to redirect the creature's momentum, slamming him into the wall with bone-crushing force. 8. Another tried to use a captured human grenade, but Oakwood Quantum Blade intercepted it mid-throw, the explosive detonating harmlessly against his energy field. 7. The battle raged through the archive level, both sides taking damage. Oakwood armor was now showing multiple breach points, and his movements were becoming more deliberate, more economical. He was conserving energy for the final push. 6. 5. 4. When only 3 Dartmans remained, they made their final stand in the embassy's main conference room, the same room where Sarah Lee had been scheduled to give a presentation about night culture to a group of Kitharan dignitaries the following week. Oakwood entered the room methodically, his quantum spurs leaving steady, determined patterns despite their damaged state. The 3 surviving assassins had positioned themselves with overlapping fields of fire, their weapons trained on the only entrance. 2, Oakwood said as his blade found the first. 1, as the second fell to a perfectly placed quantum disruption pulse from his peacemaker. The last Dartman, the one whose armor bore the markings of a squad leader, faced Major Oakwood alone. This was likely the one who had given the orders, who had coordinated the massacre. "You killed 138 innocent people," Oakwood said, his voice deadly calm. "But you made one mistake." The Dartman raised his weapon, clicking something in his native language that my translator couldn't parse. "You killed my daughter," Oakwood continued, raising his quantum blade. "And she died like a knight, taking one of yours with her." The final engagement lasted less than 3 seconds. When it was over, Major Oakwood stood alone among the bodies of his enemies, his quantum spurs flickering with unstable energy patterns. He had won, but at significant cost to his equipment and reserves. "0," he said with grim satisfaction, then immediately began calling for medical and forensic teams. I remained hidden for several more minutes, unsure whether revealing myself was wise. The night had eliminated the threat, but I was still an alien in a building full of dead humans. However, when I heard him speaking into his comm system, my translation implant picked up enough to understand he was calling for medical assistance and forensic teams. Gathering my courage, I activated the emergency communication system in my hiding place. "Major Oakwood," I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to remain calm. "This is Morturi, Embassy Cultural Coordinator. I am alive, and I have information about what happened here." There was a moment of silence before he responded. "Where are you, Morturi?" "Supply Closet 7 Alma, archive level. I have been hiding since the attack began." "Stay put," he instructed. "I'm coming to you." When the closet door opened, I got my first close look at a Texas knight. His armor was scorched in several places where plasma fire had overwhelmed his shields, but he moved with the same fluid grace I had observed during the battle. His helmet was retracted, revealing a weathered human face with eyes that held depths of sorrow and rage. "You're the cultural coordinator?" he asked, his voice gentler than I had expected. "Yes," I managed. I overheard their communications. This was a false flag operation. They wanted to make it appear that Kytharans attacked the embassy." Major Oakwood nodded grimly. "That's what we figured from Sarah Lee's message. The attack was too clean, too professional for local extremists. And the weapon signatures were all wrong for Kytharan technology. The Dartmans were waiting for extraction," I continued. "Their fleet was supposed to retrieve them, but something went wrong. They were trapped here. Their fleet ran into the USS Lone Star and her escorts about 6 hours out from Kythara," Oakwood explained. "There wasn't much left of them to extract anybody." The implications of his words sent tremors through my frame. The humans had not only responded to the embassy attack, but had intercepted the Dartman extraction force with devastating efficiency. "How did you know to come here?" I asked. Something shifted in his expression, the professional mask slipping to reveal the grieving father beneath. "Sarah Lee sent a coded transmission before they killed her. Just 3 words. Dartman false flag. My little girl, she graduated top of her class from the Night Academy. Could have had any assignment she wanted, but her professors convinced her to take this diplomatic post to show the galaxy what knights really stand for. She was supposed to be next in line for the family blade and pistol when I retired." His voice cracked slightly. "She was the kindest person I ever knew, but she was also the toughest. She took one of them with her when they came for her." I processed this information, my admiration for the fallen military attaché growing. Sarah Lee Oakwood had maintained her duty even in her final moments, ensuring that the truth would be known. But more than that, she had died fighting, proving herself worthy of the knight legacy she would never get to claim. "What happens now?" I asked. Now you help me make sure the galaxy knows what really happened here, Oakwood replied. Your people deserve to know they're not being blamed for this atrocity, and the Dartmouth government needs to understand there are consequences for murdering diplomats. As we waited for the human forensic teams to arrive, I found myself studying this legendary figure. The stories had portrayed Texas Knights as larger-than-life heroes, but Major Oakwood seemed almost ordinary in his grief. A father who had lost his child and sought justice in the only way he knew how. "May I ask you something?" I ventured. He nodded. "The stories say Texas Knights are unstoppable in battle. But you're just one person against 14 elite assassins who had military-grade weapons. How did you know you could win?" Oakwood was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. "Where I come from, we have an old saying, 'One riot, one ranger.' It means that sometimes the right person in the right place is all you need to set things straight. And you believed you were the right person?" His eyes hardened with resolve. "They killed my daughter. They murdered 138 good people, including 52 soldiers who died protecting others. Sarah Lee had night training. She could have just sent that message and hidden, but she chose to fight back. Chose to make them pay for what they were doing. They tried to start a war between our peoples, and they picked the wrong building to hole up in while they waited for rescue." He paused, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Yeah, I was the right person for this job. Sarah Lee deserved justice, and by God, she got it." In the hours that followed, as human investigators processed the scene and Kithran officials arrived to coordinate the diplomatic response, I watched Major Oakwood work with methodical precision to ensure every detail was documented. His earlier fury had been replaced by a professional determination to see justice done properly. The evidence was overwhelming. The Dartmouth assassins' equipment, their communications logs, and their tactical approach all pointed to a false flag operation designed to destabilize human-Catharan relations. When the full story was released to the galactic media, the Dartmouth government found itself facing a diplomatic crisis of unprecedented proportions. As for me, I became something of a celebrity. The sole survivor who could testify to both the Dartmouth's intentions and the Knight's response. But more than that, I became a witness to something I had never truly understood before: the human concept of justice, embodied in a warrior who had traveled across space to avenge his family and protect the innocent. The last time I saw Major Oakwood, he was preparing to return to Earth with his daughter's body. I approached him at the spaceport, wanting to express my gratitude, but unsure how to do so in human terms. "Major," I said, "I wanted to thank you, not just for saving my life, but for preventing a war that would have cost millions of lives on both sides." He turned to me, and I saw that some of the grief had eased from his features. "Just doing my job, Morturi, though I appreciate you being willing to testify about what you witnessed." "It was the least I could do," I replied. Then, gathering my courage, I asked, "Will there be justice for those who ordered this attack?" Oakwood smiled, and there was something both warm and cold in the expression. "The Dartmouth High Command is finding out that when you mess with Texas, you don't just get one angry knight. The whole Corps has taken an interest in their activities now." As I watched his transport lift off toward the jump point, I reflected on what I had learned about humans during my time at the embassy. They were capable of great kindness and terrible vengeance in equal measure, but most importantly, they never forgot their own. And when one of theirs was wronged, the response would be swift, precise, and utterly implacable. The galaxy had been reminded of an important lesson. Humanity's diplomats might speak softly, but their knights carried very big sticks. And sometimes, one angry veteran with quantum spurs and a family to avenge was all it took to keep the peace. In Sarah Lee Oakwood's personal effects, they found a letter she had been writing to her father, never sent. It spoke of her excitement about returning to active night duty, about carrying on the family tradition, about making him proud. The letter ended with a simple line that would later be inscribed on her memorial. Justice isn't about the sword you carry. It's about why you choose to draw it. Major Oakwood retired 3 months later, but not before ensuring that Sarah Lee's diplomatic work was completed. The cultural exchange program she had championed became a permanent institution, helping to prevent the very conflicts she had died trying to stop. The family Quantum Blade and Peacemaker were retired with him, their legacy complete. Sometimes the greatest honor a weapon can receive is to never be drawn in anger again. Thank you, channel member Caleb Fast, for making this video possible. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.